me today. So we are going to be moving on with our Kings and Queens app. You'll remember that last time we looked at Richard the First, also known as Richard the Lionheart, probably one of the most famous rulers of England. But let's look at King John next. He is quite interesting as well because he was probably one of the worst kings. So, King John, also known as Lackland, interesting sort of a nickname. He was born on the 24th of December 1166 and he died on the 19th of October 1216. He reigned from the 6th of April 1199 until his death on the 19th of October 1216. So, King John was a bit of a disaster as a king. John annoyed his barons so much that they made him sign an agreement called the Magna Carta, or Great Charter, protecting the rights of the people against the wishes of the king and changing the course of English history. Now, the Magna Carta was a really important part of England, probably in line with the Doomsday Book. We learn about the Doomsday Book and the Magna Carta in school when we are, well, very, very young. I don't know if that's true now, but when I was younger we learned about this. Maybe I'll do a separate video about the Magna Carta and also the Doomsday Book, which William I or William the Conqueror was responsible for. But anyway, this did nothing to help save French territories, however, which were lost under John's rule. Oh, and the other thing he lost, the crown jewels. So not only did he lose the French influence, he also lost the most important thing of the monarchy, and that's the crown jewels. What a nightmare. Alright. So John Lackland. John was the youngest of Henry II's troublesome sons. He was nicknamed Lackland because he was the only one who grew up without his own region to rule. So he was Lacklanded, without land. That's really unfortunate. After his elder brothers Henry and Geoffrey, Duke of Brittany, died, and while Richard I was off fighting in the Third Crusade, John started plotting to take the crown for himself, even declaring himself king when Richard was in prison. Richard found out, but John managed to charm his way out of trouble. And again, like I mentioned in the last video, King John just reminds me of the Disney film Robin Hood. I can just see it in my head. So he charmed his way out of trouble. This didn't last long, however. Richard died, and John did actually become king. Oh my goodness. And what a rotten king he was. He was weak, greedy, and selfish. It was during John's reign that England lost nearly all her probably so weak he couldn't say no. Thrown under threat. When John became king, he wasn't technically first in line to the throne. Why does that not surprise me? This should have been his nephew, Arthur, who was the son of John's elder brother, Geoffrey. But Arthur was just a little boy, and Richard chose John to succeed him. When Arthur reached his teens, however, he started getting hungry for the throne. He imprisoned his grandmother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, in order to start a war with John. John wasn't so useless that he couldn't beat a 15-year-old boy. He captured Arthur and had him murdered. Oh dear. Questionable kingship. John was impatient and not at all sensible. We could have gathered that. When travelling from Norfolk to Lincolnshire with all of his servants and royal possessions, he ordered his party to cross the Wash without checking the tide first. The tide came in and swept away all John's treasures, and the crown jewels were lost to sea forever. I didn't even know that. So the crown jewels that we have now, Queen Elizabeth, they're not the original crown jewels. They're somewhere in the sea. I wonder if anybody has found them. Oh my goodness. Now that is a story that I would like to explore. Alright, so I think that's it in terms of the overview. Oh, I might even dedicate a whole video to the terrible King John because he sounds like such a loser. Alright, let's look at the painting. So here he is. Lovely King John. Look at him. He's got the beautiful curly beard and hair like all of his other family. You can see he's a weak man. I don't know. I just look at him. He just seems not very strong or, particularly influential. He just seems a little bit puny. Brother of Rich, through the right of Arthur, his elder, died. John. You see the 3 lines there. So interesting. This is related people. Let's look at this timeline here. So in 1166, John is born. In 1199, John Lackland succeeds to the throne. In 1202, John takes his niece, Eleanor, captive. Let's look at this. So Eleanor, the fair maid of Brittany, who was Duchess of Brittany. Eleanor was the daughter of Geoffrey, Duke of Brittany, and older sister of Arthur, who he murdered. John murdered him. As if murdering her brother wasn't enough, John went on to take Eleanor prisoner. Although treated pretty well, as prison goes, Eleanor was never free to do as she wished, not even marry. John's son, Henry III, maintained this regime, and Eleanor stayed a prisoner for the rest of her remarkably long life. Wow. Okay, Eleanor, you deserve your video in its entirety. You see that in all of these instances, the poor women really do get treated terribly. But I can see why John did this, because if he had Eleanor imprisoned, she couldn't start a revolution or a revolt and go against him, so he was tying up loose ends, it seems. So in 1203, John's nephew Arthur mysteriously disappears. So this is Arthur. And Arthur was Duke of Brittany and Earl of Richmond. Arthur Arthur, son of Geoffrey, Duke of Brittany, was a rebellious young lad who thought he could take on his uncle King John. What a mistake that was. He might only have been a boy, but Arthur was ready to fight for his kingdom. John was cunning though, and he captured Arthur and had him thrown into prison. Sometime afterwards, and no one knows for sure when or how, Arthur simply disappeared. A rumour arose that because Arthur's jailers refused to hurt the boy, John had murdered his own nephew with his bare hands. Oh my goodness, that's so horrible. I don't like this King John. Alright, 1215, John signs the Magna Carta. John signs the Magna Carta. This is the Daily Monarch, the fictional newspaper. King John crossed the Barrens one time too many. Following the latest rebellion by northern barons, John met their leaders and agreed to sign the Magna Carta. This outlines all of the barons' concerns relating to the king's exploitation of taxation and privileges, and represents the first time that defined limitations to royal rights are established in written law. And I think this was because you had people like the Sheriff of Nottingham and, you know, all those people we see from fictional like cartoons and stuff, just basically taking whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, implying heavy taxes, and just basically taking the law into their own hands. Again, this would be a very interesting piece of history to explore further. And in 1216, thankfully, John dies, and that's the end of that. So this is all just scratching the surface on King John. There clearly was lots of political unrest. He made some really rubbish decisions. I think he was probably not very bright. He probably was a little bit stupid, if I'm being perfectly honest. But he was cunning, and he exploited anything and everything. And, I suppose if he didn't kill his nephew, he probably would have revolted. So even though it was a really awful thing to do to kill your nephew, it prevented uprising. It doesn't say a lot about his children, actually. Let's look at his family tree. So he married Countess of Gloucester, Isabella. Oh, this marriage didn't have any children. And okay. Oh no, it was Henry, wasn't it? Oops. Okay. It's not 100% clear, so maybe that will be something to look at in another video. Right, so let's do the quiz now and see how much we've learned from this horrible King John. Question 1 of 4. John was the youngest son of which king? Was it Richard the First? Was it William the First? Was it Henry the Second? Or was it Stephen? Alright, so I can't remember now. Richard the First, that was his brother, his predecessor. William the First was William the Conqueror. Henry the Second, maybe. Stephen. I'm going to go with Henry the Second. Correct. John was the younger son of Henry the Second. Now let's go on to the next question. 2 of 4. What year was the Magna Carta signed? Was it 1546? Was it 1215? Was it 1300 or was it 1450? So I'm going to rule out this 1500 and 1400 one because that's too far forward in our timeline. So it was either 1215 or 1300. Well, considering the fact he died in 1216, I am going to go with 1215. Correct. The Magna Carta was signed in 1215. It defied limitations to royal rights to prevent the king from further exploiting the barons. Next question, 3 or 4. How did King John lose the crown jewels? He buried them and forgot where they were. They were stolen by one of his servants. He lost them in a bet during a game of cards, or he lost them at sea. He absolutely lost them at sea. Correct. When travelling from Norfolk to Lincolnshire, John ordered his servants to cross the Wash without checking the tide first. When the tide came in, the crown jewels were swept away and lost. Now I will tell you a funny story about something similar which happened to me. I was working on a film production where I was the first assistant director, and we were working on a tidal beach, and we had checked the tides, and it all seemed perfectly safe to film in this tidal cave where we were working. But on that particular day, there was a spring tide or a spring equinox tide, and the tide came in an hour earlier than expected, and we all had to rush to get out of this cave before we were all lost to sea. So although it wasn't necessarily anyone's fault, I can see how it could happen, even though it's a stupid thing to do. Alright, so question 4 of 4. Who was the 15-year-old boy that tried to usurp John from the throne? Was it Arthur, Duke of Brittany, Richard, Duke of York, Edmund of Woodstock, Earl of Kent, or Richard, Earl of Cornwall? It's Arthur, isn't it? Correct. Arthur was John's nephew, son of John's older brother, Geoffrey. Arthur was technically first in line to the throne after Richard, and when he reached his teens, he tried to take it from his uncle and got murdered in the process. So we got 4 crowns out of 4. So this is horrible King John, and he seems like a rotten man. But let me know if you want me to do, look deeper into this King John character. He seems very interesting. I always like to look at the villains rather than the heroes in history. I don't know why, they seem a lot more interesting, So, thank you so much for listening, guys. I hope you found this interesting as well as informative. And I will see you